We're doing our finals from the lectern, which is fun. Deputies, my final activity report. I can't believe it's been 3 years since I was elected a vice president of the board. It's tragic that this triennium has been bookended by conflict in Israel and significant public anti-Semitism, from convoys through northwest London to calls to globalize the Intifada. I pray for the release of the hostages and for peace, and I know I'm joined by all of you in that too. During this latest conflict, which ushered in what may well be the most difficult time for Jews around the world since the fall of Nazism, the board has been working non-stop to support our community in every way that we can. I'm proud to be a part of that work. Perhaps the most personally moving activity that I've done since October 7th was working with the Australian High Commission here in London to fly over Australian Israelis, mostly the elderly and young families, a week after October 7th. The board was able to ensure that these people felt safe, had trauma counsellors to speak with, and a place to pray. I'd like to reiterate my thanks to Edgware and Hendon Reform Synagogue for the role they played in providing a safe space for these vulnerable people who had been evacuated from their homes just days before. I don't imagine that I will ever be able to forget the young child who, on hearing a loud noise, ran into a makeshift tent saying, "Mummy, the sirens are going off. We have to go to the shelter." It is only because of the work the board uniquely does with embassies here in the UK that we're able to provide this service, and it was a powerful reminder to me of how important this work is. It was through this work that we organised an event to celebrate the Abraham Accords with the Israeli, Bahraini, Emirati and Moroccan ambassadors, joined by the Prime Minister on just his second week in the job. Our diplomatic engagement is paramount. It's through this work that we effect changes to votes at the UN, support communities abroad, and work on important projects to support cultural heritage. Following the Inquisition, my family fled Portugal and Spain, making a new life in London with a brief pit stop in the Netherlands. I was particularly proud, therefore, to facilitate the first ever visit to the Bevismark Synagogue by the Spanish ambassador and the Portuguese ambassador. That synagogue, of course, is founded by those kicked out of the Iberian Peninsula, and a reminder of the Jewish community's resilience to build even better lives for ourselves following adversity. It was also, of course, the site that was the birthplace of the Board of Deputies. We've held events with the Portuguese Embassy to celebrate the Sephardic element of our community's heritage, and I sincerely hope the relationship will continue to flourish under my successor. I'd like to thank His Excellency Nuno Brito and First Secretary João Albuquerque for their work in building this relationship. Over the past 3 years, I believe we have really deepened and strengthened our relationship with countless embassies and high commissions, and perhaps none more so than with the German embassy. I'd like to thank His Excellency Miguel Berger for his focus on culture and the incredible support that we have been given by his team, specifically Deputy Ambassador Rudiger Bonn and Head of the Department for Culture and Education, Dr. Susanna Frein. This team have helped support my ambition to create a twinning project with German communities. They facilitated for us a cross-communal trip to the country to learn more about the work being done in Germany to combat anti-Semitism and, vitally, promote Jewish life in that country today. This project, which will take both time and money, has had its foundations laid, and I hope it's something the board can continue to build out to celebrate our community's important connection with Germany. During this triennium, we've also strengthened our links with partners across the Atlantic, deepening our work, particularly with the ADL in the United States, who have supported us in building an educational tool that should help combat anti-Semitism in school for the years to come. Vital now more than ever. I'd be remiss not to thank Barry Fleischman for his support and friendship, as well as that of Dr. Cheryl Fishbein, the chair of New York's Jewish Community Relations Council, who has been a stalwart friend of both mine and the board's. In Canada, I'd like to thank Anthony Housefather MP, who has driven the Interparliamentary Task Force combating online anti-Semitism, of which we're a member. This task force is holding social media companies to account, grilling senior stakeholders at those companies in the US Capitol and at the European Parliament. Our Canadian sister community, the Centre for Israel and Jewish Affairs, has had a huge amount to deal with over the past few years, and I've been particularly honoured to work closely with Richard Marceau, CIJA's Vice President for External Affairs and General Counsel. Building these connections elevates our own community and amplifies our voice. I've spoken on your behalf at the UN in both New York and with thanks to Dr. Leon Seitel of the World Jewish Congress at the Human Rights Council in Geneva. There I spoke about how the UK is one of the best places in the world to be Jewish. While times now might be tough, I have no doubt that remains true today. As long as the board is able to maintain a close working relationship with the government of the day, with the police and with other important civic stakeholders, I believe that will remain the case. It's our relationship with the government that has meant, for instance, that our lobbying for the full proscription of Hamas was successful, making it illegal for people to support that awful organization on our streets today with impunity. There's plenty more to do, and I wish the next team the best of luck in doing it. The one piece of advice I'd give above all else is invest in international. The board is uniquely able to do amazing things, working with communities across denominations and countries the world over. Don't take our ability to do this for granted. And remember that by doing this work, you can amplify the voices of and help Jews in the UK and around the world. I'd like to, if you'll indulge me, give one last round of thank yous. I'd like to thank our staff team for all of their support, without which we would be unable to do anything at all. I'd like to thank Marie and the rest of the Honorary Officer team for their help and support. Their drive to make this an even better country and world for our community to live in. I'd like to thank my international division, particularly my Vice Chair, Jonathan Cole, and to thank every single deputy. We might not always agree with each other, but every person in this room has a passion for supporting British Jewry. It's been an honor to work with all of you over the past 3 years. Finally, a thank you to my family, particularly, of course, my mum, dad, and my wife and fellow deputy, Melissa, for all of your support for me, always. Deputies, we've achieved much over the past 3 years, and our international work is more important than ever before. I wish the whole of the next team the best of luck and look forward to working with you all over the training to come. Thank you. And in the 2 minutes I've got left, I'm happy to take any questions.
Would you take a question from Paul Edlin?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. I would just like to add a personal tribute to Sydney Assar, who was a member of the International Division for at least 15 years under my chairmanship and the late Flo Kaufman's chairmanship. He was instrumental in bringing the members of the honorary officers at the time to meet the King of Morocco, who I believe was a personal friend of his at the time, and I feel it should be mentioned. I was going to ask a further question about Ukraine, but I think as this is the last report in this triennium, I just want to congratulate David on his work and leave it at that. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. I'm being encouraged to move on. Thank you. Right, defence. I'm very grateful to Ephraim Borowski. Where are you? Do you want to come to the stand? I'm just going to explain why he's coming to the stand, because candidates can't give the reports because we're still awaiting the vote, and people can still vote. So that's why the Vice Chair is coming to give the report. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Marie, and congratulations on reaching the end of your marathon in that role. I want to say that presenting this report is the pinnacle of my experience of the board. I won't tell deputies how many decades I've been here, but never have I been allowed to sit at the top table, and I'm pleased that you haven't actually broken that duck. And I'm merely standing here rather than sitting there. There are a few things I would like to say. Obviously, I'm presenting this report for the Defence Division on behalf of Imelda because she has been gagged for the day. But I do want to begin by paying tribute to her for her chairing of the division for the last 3 years. It has not always been an entirely pleasant task, I would imagine. It's quite difficult sometimes, even just being an observer of the splits, the policy splits and the ideological splits in a division like that. And I do want to pay tribute to Amanda for steering us through between Scylla and Charybdis for the classicists amongst you. At least Vicky understood that. A couple of things I want to address specifically. There were two questions amongst the questions from deputies that I think bear on the work of the Defence Division. We've heard partial answers to this from the candidates earlier on, but I think it might be interesting for deputies to hear what I think is the Defence Division response to these questions. The first was from, or in fact the third was from Leila Cumber asking what happens. We're encouraged to report incidents and examples of bias. What happens to these reports? The point I want to make is this. We're all in the business, as several people have said, and David has just said as well, in supporting the Jewish life in the United Kingdom being a pleasant and welcoming experience for members of the Jewish community. We don't always achieve that by shouting and banging the table. Sometimes we do it by talking quietly. One of the very first things I learned when at the age of 17 I joined the so-called Public Relations Committee of the Glasgow Jewish Representative Council was that public relations is done in private. And a lot of it is, and it has to be. And shouting and breaking people's windows is clearly not always a way of winning them over to your side. So what's important about these reports that come in, and do please keep them coming in, is that it allows the people who collate that data to identify patterns and trends, and thereby to identify which doorbell to press in private in order to make representations. So that, I think, is something that all of us have to keep in mind. The fact that you don't hear an instant knee-jerk response to something doesn't mean it's not being dealt with. The second was what's listed as question 1 from Joe Millis. Apparently I thought it was going to be his parting shot until we received his parting shot just now, which is, how can one organisation claim to be the voice of British Jews when we speak with so many voices? Well, that's the trick. We have to have those debates internally. We have to reach a consensus internally and speak with one voice. And if that is not possible, then actually we should have the guts to say so. Wearing my other hat, I'm here as the deputy for my shul, but as most of you know, I'm the director of the Scottish Council of Jewish Communities. That's exactly what we do in Scotland. We have our discussions internally, and for example, it's not just on these big international issues, but on what one might call the ethical issues that divide the community as well. Assisted dying, same-sex marriage. We go to government and we say, there isn't unanimity in the community. The orthodox answer is this, the reform or the liberal answer is that, and it may be that there's general common ground which we spell out. And all the branches of the community commend us for doing so. So the fact that we're divided internally doesn't mean we can't speak with one voice on behalf of the community. And that's what we're out to do. And that, I think, has been the main job of the Defence Division, and for the last 3 years under Amanda's leadership, I think we have done it extremely well. We had a meeting
6 years.
Six. Sorry, I do apologise. My 3 years as Vice Chair, your 6 years in the hot seat. We had our last divisional meeting on Thursday. I was astonished at the level of unanimity that there was. I think the only thing in those 6 years that I can remember that the division was unanimous about was thanking Amanda for her leadership. So let me just stick that to the wall. Not, of course, that I'm attempting to influence those of you who haven't yet voted. Obviously, as everyone who's going to take part in this part of the meeting is going to say, we have to thank all the staff for their support, for their expertise, and also the members of the division for their input. I hope nobody will object if I single out a couple on behalf of Amanda and myself.
As long as you can finish within 2 minutes, you can single.
I will do my best. I want to thank Eleanor, who has chaired the family law group for as long as I can remember, and still does, and we have a meeting tomorrow night. Secondly, David Katz, whom I saw earlier on, who is our medical advisor. It would be very difficult, I think, for the division to achieve as much as it does without the input of both of those. And the third person, if I may single out, is Susan Pascoe, who has chaired the Higher Education Working Group, which has obviously found itself thrust into the front line. But Amanda pointed out to me the other day, we also have held a number of open meetings of the division about anti-Semitism, about other things, and there have been more than 40 people taking part in those. So clearly, we are very grateful to deputies at large for giving us that guidance through these open discussions. We've achieved a lot. The report addresses some of them. We've heard today about our achievements with the police, by which most of you mean the Met, which is only one of 43 police forces in the United Kingdom, but don't let me overemphasize that. We have a better relationship, I have to say, with Scotland than we've had for a long time. I think you all know where Scotland is. It's that large empty place up north. And last and not least, a developing relationship not only with the CST, but also with UJS. And I want to pay tribute to the outgoing team at UJS, particularly Ed and Guy and the people who work with them, who have been extremely good, have attended our meetings, and have led us when it comes to dealing with issues on the university campus.
Thank you. And can I thank Ephraim? You've been a great vice chair and you've done a great speech. Thank you. Next up, where is Sid? Thank you, Sid, who's going to do a similar talk. He makes no promises. Right, that's accepted. But of course, Michael also, as if cannot give his report up for election. Thank you.
Right. Good afternoon. I'm Sid Braham, Barnet Synagogue Deputy, but I'm speaking to you today as the Vice Chairperson. I don't like the word chair, that's an inanimate object. I prefer chairperson, and hopefully that appeals to others, everyone can accept that, of the F&O division. You have the Treasurer's report with you, ladies and gentlemen. Just a couple of things to highlight, if I may. The communal contribution is noted as slightly ahead of budget year to date, but I do stress that is, I guess, timing. Yeah. April, it's slightly further ahead, but let us not be complacent. If you haven't yet paid your communal contribution for this year, please, I urge you. Expenses are broadly in line. The operational deficit line is marginally over budget, but I think it's going to be slightly less over budget at the end of April. We, of course, have a break-even budget, as the Treasurer explained earlier. Couple of things. Encouragingly, Yom HaShoah, we're expecting a small deficit in the accounts this year compared to what it was last year. The trustees regard Yom HaShoah as a high-profile event that the board should have a lead role in, and that the position is therefore acceptable. The governance is mentioned in the report. I'm not sure when the trustees will meet to discuss. I expect that will be deferred to the new set of trustees. Governance will be a priority for the new team. Premises, we hope to move in this week. So, Mazal Tov, and pay tribute to the hard work of the staff in getting us there. And I hope that, deputies, you will get the chance to have the tour before long. Risk is mentioned, a slightly vanilla statement, which I wasn't party to, just to remind you that ultimately risk is the responsibility of the trustees. The risk working group, led by Richard Sassoon, meets to advise and devise action plans. All remaining high and medium risks have been identified and mitigation plans are in place. Finally, on the report, the audit, it's on track for sign-off, I believe, at the end of the month, which is where we want to be. Perhaps you will indulge me, other divisions have looked back over the triennial. I would like to do the same, please. We started the triennial with Ben Crown as Treasurer. He left us in August 2022, and I got a phone call from Michael Uyghur saying, you are the Treasurer on an interim basis. And there I was for something like 10 weeks. And then, Baruch Hashem, a treasurer arrived, Michael Ziv, who I think, no disrespect to Ben, but Michael has done a great job since then. Ben did a great job for the first period. All the F&O division members are hardworking. The key in the division, deputies, is action, not talking. So what have we done? We've had a number of work streams. Deputy engagement, that was to improve the engagement of deputies. Work is still going on that. The new speaker programme, which new deputies spoke, or first-time speakers spoke, with a bit of training and a bit of help. That took place during the triennial. It has eased off in recent last few meetings, and I fully expect that will kick off again in the new triennial. The risk working group I've mentioned, sterling work led by Richard, and as I say, mitigation plans are all activated. We have what we call FROG, that's not in the throat, Financial Reporting and Oversight Group, and a small, was it four or five deputies working with Brian Markison and Martin Ellis. What have we done? We've improved the financial controls. The 2024 budget was actually signed off before we got to the 1st of January this year, which I think is a first, and well done, therefore, to Brian and Martin particularly. The break-even budget is the key to improving, the key to the budget. We need to improve the income, and if we improve the income, then we can do more work, and I'm sure everybody would like the board to do more. Communal contribution, over years, that is flat, despite increased efforts to to build up support. All synagogues with deputies, let me remind you, sign up to collect communal contribution from their members. Sadly, some don't. You may find that hard to believe, but please, every deputy should really act as an ambassador for the board within their own communities and help to increase the take of the communal contribution. It's not something that one should leave to others. If the board is to be the democratic institute that we all talk about, then hands need to be put in pockets. Investments committee, we have professionally managed investments, and that has allowed us to commit to a term lease on the new premises. Governance, an absolute key area, which was held over from the previous triennial. In my short spell as acting treasurer, we dusted off the governance issue. Time was short in the remaining time of this triennial, but we resolved the deputy's liability issue. Besides governance, future funding is an absolute key. Future funding report, Phil mentioned earlier, that reported some time ago, that must be actioned and delivered without further delay. Finally, may I please thank all the F&O members for their hard work. I'd like to thank the Treasurer. I need to thank the board staff for their hard work, but an especial Yisha Koach, please, to Brian Markison, who has just retired as financial director. Brian, you would never know, was part-time. He was always available to me and to anybody who called him. We owe him a huge debt of thanks. He will be a hard act to follow, but we welcome Martin Ellis as his successor. You've got big shoes to fill. And any questions? Good.
No, thank you. Thank you, that was an amazing speech. So we've had two people that said they've never spoken, and what magnificent speeches that you've given. Sorry, we're on a very tight clock. Edwin, over to you, please.
Deputies, good afternoon. You will see the report that is in your chart. It is actually very unusual, because this is a very unusual day for me, for the division, and for what I'm going to say to you. I have 15 minutes, and I want to do three things today. So the first one is the Communities Division. The Communities Division, I chaired, it's my last meeting on Wednesday. And we were not able to report on that. So I'm indulging and reporting on it because it summed up six years of me chairing that division, which is coming now to an end. First of all, the most unusual part of it is actually we held the division meeting in our brand new spanking offices at Old House. This is the legacy of this team of HOs for the next, at least for the next 15 years. You'd love it, and we were absolutely delighted to be the first division to hold it, but there will be dozens and dozens and hundreds more of such things in them. We also, the other unusual thing is that at the end of a triennial, normally these divisions get less and less people. We actually had a full house. We had observers who came in almost every single meeting. We had co-ops. We had people who came in for the election and did not win it, but they still joined us. And I don't want to pretend that I caused all this. But I just indulge me with one thing. 6 years ago, this division was, I would say, almost the Cinderella of the divisions. And when I went for election for Hastings, I said I will do this, this, and this. And people said, where will you find time for this? This is like a vice president part-time. And I said, actually, will find a lot of time. Because my style, both in my business and in all the organizations that I've been, is actually not to do the work, just to take the credit. So the deal is to delegate, to motivate, and to learn from people who are better than me. So it really was a matter of managing this division rather than leading it. And so I am so proud of what we ended up with as, I would say to you, the positive ID division of the Board of Deputies. And I beg whoever is coming next to look at the last report that we will file to my next chair and see what we have done in this division. We've introduced things that are LGBTQ+, intellectual disability working group, disability and hidden disability, health and mental health, heritage, Holocaust legacy board, plaques, blue plaques for the Board of Deputy. SACRE was increased from 32 to 100 and something. The UJS, youth, all these things, as well as inviting anyone who expressed any wish to do something to this. Learn from this model and learn that really and truly what we have here, the 300 people who are deputies, are sometimes more capable in their division and their fields than us ourselves. And so now I think it's 5 o'clock, so I can give credit to the people who did all this, because I was not going to name names before the election closes. So one of the other, okay, I see that you looked at the watch. They haven't closed yet. So what I would say that this division has come up with half the candidates for the president and the vice president. And that is all this put together. I'm so proud that I'm leaving after 6 years with a better and more strong division than I had. Thank you very much. And my next task today is to introduce just verbally the follow-up to the Commission report on racial inclusivity in the Jewish community. This is, again, although I am presenting it, I'm not owning it. It is the legacy of the team that worked under Marie for the last 6 years that came up with this incredible, unusual, in terms of a faith group, looking at itself, rather than shouting anti-Semitism or Islamophobia, actually looking at itself and says, right, before I can do that, before I can demand from other from other faith groups, what is wrong with me? How do I change myself? And I beg you, in a way, I came back second time to fulfill the implementation of that. And I failed. I failed for various reasons. One of them is personal reasons, that I could not be there to chair the division and to work there. But also, the events were so overwhelming during this triennial that there wasn't resources, not time resources or people resources, to actually implement 119 recommendations that Stephen Bush has done. What I am going to tell you about this report will be in every deputy's inbox within the next 48 hours. We had an embargo on it because we did not want to launch it with names of people who are candidates. But trust me, and I want each one of you to read it. It's got 52 pages that summarize and link to the Stephen Bush original report, but also tells you a lot more about it. What happened since then? For example, the Board of Deputies took on 26 of these recommendations, which relates to our work, and implemented them all. So we are presenting now, what is the purpose of that? Is actually summarize, but also put a challenge to the community. The community, the philanthropists, the organizations, the Board of Deputies spent 6 years so far on this. And now we say to you, this is what we think needs to be done, and has to be done, and should be done. This commission should not sit on a shelf or in a cupboard, and should not be this should be implemented. We have put in here 3 steps: short-term, medium-term, and long-term. 1 year, 3 year, 5 years. We have identified and priced what could be done. For example, global resources on diversity and inclusivity, on colored Jews, on Mizrahi Jews, curriculum changes. All that is identified and again priced, as well as the leading Sephardi organizations in the field. Take it from here, and I am going to put myself as a deputy next time, only to come in and harangue the new team and say, guys, we've done all this work, let's finish it. Finally, I am again indulging with the President's permission to give my thanks to everyone on behalf of the HO. So, first of all, the professional team. I want to mention them by name. I think that grouping them as professional team is not enough for me. I work with the people I worked with closely: senior management, Andrew Lee, Brian Markson, Dawn, Daniel Sugarman, Sarah Radivan, Anna Silva, Sarah Hussein, Adam Manit, Victoria Lisek, Danny Robinson, David Robinson, Simon Round, Jack Baldwin, Martin Ellis, Danny Meyer, and I'm sure I forgot one person. But if anybody can remember anything, to each one of those people, on behalf of the HO, my salute and my respect and my admiration. And the ultimate professional is our CEO, Michael Wieger. I can honestly say I have, in 45 years of working in the community, never seen a person who has put himself out. Like sometimes I am 2 o'clock in the morning or whenever I wake up at 5 o'clock, I would fire a question to him thinking that I will get an answer at 9:30 when he gets to work. No, it will be 4:05 because he just woke up and he had to answer it. Thank you, Michael, for an incredible work. You are an absolute blessing, a blessing for this board. Before I...
I think that we should thank the Constitution Committee because they've had to deal with so many things.
All right. So Marie says we would like to thank the Constitution Committee, and Tony Lifa is representing that committee, and how much more do I know about what the Constitution Committee did over 6 years? So before I check out, I'm checking out of, I've been associated with the board the first time 33 years ago. I've been 24 years in the divisions, 12 on the executive, 6 on the vice president, and now I look forward to seeing my calendar empty and vacant for the next few months. But before I do that, I want on behalf of the HOs, this professional staff, and yourself, to put my final tribute to you, Marie. I first met with you when we were campaigning against each other. And at that time, And immediately once we started the campaign, I realized that I had no chance. There was a person with such single-mindedness and a winner who's not gonna give up. And therefore, even in defeat, I drew a lot of comfort that I will be vice president to someone who will win all our battles and all our challenges on behalf of the Board of Deputies, but more important, on behalf of the Jews of Britain and Jews everywhere in the diaspora. Thank you, Marie. You have shown extraordinary dedication at the expense of your career, at the expense of your family, spending almost every weekend in Bournemouth and in Glasgow and Essex, and whoever invites you and everybody did want to see you. You said no to no one. And you gave the board all the benefit of being a lawyer, conflict resolution, and you have, above all, been fair. And when you made a mistake, you corrected it. And you were not too proud to apologize from anyone. And all that, for the last 6 years, and for the legacy you've left, I thank you on behalf of everyone, and I wish you best of luck wherever you do.
Okay, it's my turn for a couple of minutes. So first of all, the election is now closed. So thank you all, the voting's closed. What's going to happen now is for about the next 15 or so minutes, the results are being tabulated and prepared. And at some point, I will get a text and Marie, Tony and I will disappear to go and get the results. We'll then, once we've understood them, we'll come back. Marie will announce the results. And she'll say a few words, and then the incoming president, whoever he or she is, will make a few comments. Before that, there are going to be 2 speeches, well, 3 including me. So I guess I count as a speech. So I'll start. I'm then going to hand over to Karen Newman, and I'm going to hand over to Richard Cohen. And at that point, we might give Marie a right of reply. Maybe.
Yes,
yeah, maybe. But so I'm in awe of the candidates who have stood for president and for vice president. I'm in awe of them. I've followed them the entire time. I've been up and down the country with them. I've seen the way they work. So my first thank you is really to the candidates who stood. And the reason that I can say that is for the last 3 years, since I became chief executive, I have worked with the current team of HOs, give or take 1 or 2 people, as you know. And the work they do is extraordinary, and it has been a privilege to serve with them on all of your behalf and see them. And I will miss all of them greatly, even though simultaneously I'm looking forward very much to working with the new team. And I thought, I do also want to add my thanks to Tony and to Colin in his absence. Colin had to leave, he's off to Israel, but Tony especially, ably supported by Colin and the other people of the Constitution Committee. They also have done amazing work, and particularly with Tony and Colin, who have had to call every now and then for sometimes really important issues, sometimes frankly a bit ridiculous issues, a little bit of both. But they have been patient and given their time and helped me understand the weird and wonderful world of the Constitution, and that's been really important as well, so I echo my thanks. So what I'd like to do is to ask Karen if she will come up. I can't see Karen, I'm sure she's there. There you are. If Karen, do you want to come up to the podium, please?
Hi, it's been a long day. I'm Karen Newman. I'm deputy for the Liberal Jewish Synagogue. I've been asked to say thank you to 1 or 2 people who are receding a little from view. And there have been so many thanks already that I hope that I can do it in a way that conveys that it really is from everybody. I was particularly asked to thank the HOs, but I do want to say something about Marie, because you have been exceptional. You really, really have. There were so many things that were not easy for you, and you managed to get through them. We will never forget, although we haven't mentioned here because you've done so much as president, when you were the chair of the Defence Division, you had a coroner from Camden who was beyond dreadful, and you kicked her into touch time and time again, and that was a really fantastic thing for you to do, and we reap the benefits of that every day. So thank you for that. This election season has been, I would say, relatively respectful, relatively kind, and relatively good. You participated in a couple that weren't quite like that. The first one was there were extraordinary bits of bad behavior, which mercifully we got a really good result from, but you experienced most of that behavior directly and you came through it and we benefited from that. So thank you for that. And then when we have custom and practice around a really good president for the first term, maybe they can serve their second term, there was a challenger. And the way that you conducted yourself during that campaign, which should never have happened, was phenomenal. Thank you very much. You've also, you've taken on really difficult things. I mean, if ever there's a topic where there is no consensus, it's Israel, but you have managed to get the balance right between being a presence for the board while recognizing that this is a hugely diverse community and there are very, very millions of views on Israel, and you have managed that with extraordinary skill, and we need to thank you for that. I could go on. The first time I came across you was when we emerged from the tube together for the Dayenu March. And I actually thought if I was just speaking about you, it really would. I'd talk about what you've done for the Labour Party and say Dayenu. It would have been enough. But then I had mentioned what you did for the BBC. Dayenu. It wouldn't have been enough. What about refugees? Not many people think that that's important. Well, it is. It's important for British Jews to say we care about other issues. And you allowed us to do that. I think I'm here to speak about the HO, so I will stop, but I will ask you one more time to say, Marie van der Zyl, President of the Board of Deputies, thank you very much. David, when you spoke, I remembered how brilliant your campaign was. I remembered the way that you actually went for it like a laser beam, and it was just so fantastic when you won. I'm not going to go through everything you've done because so many people have done it so far, but I think the imagination that you've brought to your job has been amazing. You've done your job in turbulent times. What you just said about the partnership you've committed us to with the German embassy so we can have significant twinning of communities and creating a different relationship. What I particularly responded to was your effort to get us consultative status with the UN. That was tremendously important work. What happens in the UN matters. We need to invest time in understanding it so that we can influence it. You've helped us to do that, and I hope your legacy is that we won't stop till we get the consultative status, and if we get it, it will be down to you. Thank you, David. Amanda, I can say something about you now because the thing's closed, right? Yeah, okay. That's good. Amanda, you've chaired the most difficult division for 6 years. I have to take my hat off for the skill that you have shown in building consensus, not only from really, really difficult people, but really, really difficult people who behave badly. I know, I'm one of them. And the way that she chairs meetings, builds consensus and places a priority on that. I have to say I haven't seen anything like that. And I'm a union negotiator for 22 years. It's phenomenal. And the division has benefited from that. And I want to thank you so much for the way that you've done that with us. Because I sit on the division, whether it's people from the CST, whether you're talking to us about what you've done for the police, partnerships that you've made with so many groups, it's clear that you are not just a partner that they listen to, but that they trust. And that's because of the kind of person you are. And you've given 6 years of your life to the board. And whatever happens from this moment on, we owe you a huge debt of thanks for those 6 years. Thank you, Amanda. Edwin. What? Yeah, right, exactly. Edwin, you've been I don't have a personal relationship with, I don't know you as well as I know the others. And what's been great is I've asked a couple of people and I've really enjoyed what they've said. They've said you have helped us to build a crucial bridge with the Sephardi and Mizrahi Jews. The way that you have done that, the way that you've put your experience and your contacts at the disposal of the Board of Deputies has been phenomenal. We also have had you during a time when it's been quite difficult for you personally, but you have never stinted in the extent to which you care about the board and the time you have given to the board. Edwin, thank you very much. Where's Michael? Oh, there he is. Michael told me he was related to me, and I was so glad because you had to be divorced and married 6 times to get into my family. So I have never understood my father's family, and then Michael came and explained it to me. I was really grateful. Michael, people said before, you inherited a board with a growing deficit. You've left us with a balanced budget. That is the definition of a safe pair of hands. It's fantastic, and we owe you huge thanks for that. I also want to say that I personally found it really moving, the commitment that you made to go around every synagogue in Britain to say Kaddish. Not just because of what that was as a personal journey, but the commitment that it showed to understanding what it is to be not just a Jew in Britain in some abstract sense, but different parts of Britain, how it's different to be Jewish in different parts of Britain. And when you were in those synagogues, I know because you came to mine, the time that you spent talking to individual people within the synagogue about their experience of being Jewish in Britain, for the time that you've given to the board and for your expertise, for the moments past. Thank you very much, Michael. Am I off duty? No. Am I off duty now? Okay, I think this was they asked me to do this because I spoke, last time I spoke, I just kind of upended things. They wanted me to do something nice. So thank you for this opportunity to say thank you to a great bunch of people. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm very pleased we have some presents for the outgoing HOs. So this is for Edwin, and for David, and for Michael, and for Amanda. So Andrew, if you pass that to Amanda. Okay, so I've just been told that the results are ready. So I'm going to go now with, what's going to happen is I'm going to go with Tony, and Marie now to get them.